everyone. Welcome back to the Long Lens Podcast. This is the podcast where I answer questions from my filmmaking community, and we just talk about filmmaking and YouTube. Today, it's pretty special because I have a guest in studio, which is just my office, Matthew Dangu.
I would call this a studio.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of a studio, I guess.
It's bigger than my studio.
Today, I get to talk to Matthew about a new camera that Lumix just released, which is the Lumix S9. First off, I just kind of want to get a little bit of a disclaimer out there. I'm definitely not a Lumix ambassador. I don't have any partnership with Lumix, but Matt kind of does.
I'm a backstage creator.
A backstage creator. So he was flown out recently to Japan where the release of the S9 was announced.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the Panasonic S9. So Matt, can you tell me a little bit about this camera and kind of what are its biggest features?
Right, for sure. So the S9 is designed as the content creator everyday camera. This obviously has a lot of settings like the S5 2X. There is the 6K open gate, all the long GOP features, Cine 4K, all of these things. There is record limits, 6K, 10 minutes, 4K, 15, and then 1080, 20 minutes. The big selling features, though, with this camera is a couple things. The first one is going to be the new 4K open gate, or technically 3.8K, and the Lumix Lab app. So the Lumix Lab app allows you to transfer your photos and your 3.8K video directly to your phone, and you can color grade. You don't need Lightroom anymore. Color grade on the app, and then you can post it directly to social media. There's a couple other features, and most of the people that I met, their favorite new feature is the hybrid zoom, which is just turns a 28 zoom to 200 lens kind of on crack and makes it a 28 to 624 mil lens. And it looks really good at 624 mil.
Wow.
I took a picture. I could show you after. I took a picture of the moon the other night, and I'm like, oh, this is the best photo I've ever gotten of the moon with this lens. And then, oh, you have a 70 to 300.
70 to 200, yeah.
Oh, it's only 200.
Yeah.
Not as cool anymore. I was like, oh, shoot, we can make this even look cooler. Dang. Okay, well, but that's kind of the main selling point. Obviously, the form factor, how small it is. The new pancake lens is interesting, but the new pancake lens that's coming out, the 18 to 40, will be a lot better. But those are kind of the main selling points. It's small. It's a content creator camera. And it has a lot of features that makes the editing process a lot simpler for beginners.
I think it's important to kind of say that it's a content creator's camera. I know there's a lot of filmmakers that watch my channel, listen to my podcast, but this is, when I first saw the specs released, that was the one thing that's okay, this is for content creators, not necessarily filmmakers, mostly because of the record limits. You're not going to be able to record, super long takes with this camera. Something that Dave Altsizer pointed out to me is when the original 5D Mark II was released, we only have 12 minutes in 1080 and we still made it work. And I totally understand that, but it's 2024 now.
Yes.
And most filmmakers are going to want longer record times.
I would say this would have been the perfect overall content creator camera if it had that 30-minute record limit. But the issue is, and we were talking before this podcast, was if it adds a 30-minute record limit, the filmmakers are going to use this as a B cam.
Yeah.
But the issue is it will overheat 2 minutes after or 5 minutes after the 30 minutes. Yeah. What you can do with 6K open gate is you record for 10 minutes, stop recording, record again, and you can do that 6 times. So an hour straight, basically, minus the whole thing. And maybe once this camera gets into people's hands, do you remember the G7? Did you ever own that camera?
I never actually owned the G7, no.
Have you ever saw the hack where you touch a bunch of buttons at the exact same time? You can have unlimited recording.
What? No. I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah, so it's if you go into the menu system and then you touch 4 buttons all in a certain order at the exact same time, it would override the camera system and you had an unlimited recording and it would just record in 5-minute segments every single time and you just hit them in order and
wow.
Unlimited recording. The only issue is when you turned off your camera, a little warning symbol would pop up. But I used it as a B camera. So maybe one day someone a lot more smarter than me will figure this out. Yeah. And it would be great. But yeah, that's the issue. It's if they had some way to make it a 30-minute record limit, I could recommend this to YouTubers and people who are doing that, not filmmakers still, YouTubers.
Yeah. Because
of the overheat record limit. Even for yourself, if you had a camera that could record 30 minutes and then after that it overheated, but you could get a lot said in 30 minutes for yourself. For interviews, that becomes really hard, but that's not who this was designed for.
Sure.
This is designed for the content creators, everyday carry. If you're looking for a travel camera, this camera's perfect. A vlogging camera, this camera's perfect-ish. But if you're looking for a video camera that's like a B cam or a YouTube camera angle, that's not this.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing too, is the lens options right now are, there is the 26 millimeter that they released with this camera, which is kind of like a toy lens. It's just plastic. There's no electronics. Well, I mean, there is, but there's no autofocus. I think it's really going to make sense when that new pancake zoom lens comes out.
Right.
And then it'll actually be just like this small little camera that you can just throw in your bag if you need, you know, a photo camera or just a couple extra angles.
What would you want that price point of the 18 to 40? It's like an f4.5 to 6.3, which is such weird apertures, it feels like. But what would you want that price point? Because they haven't released the price on that lens yet.
I mean, it's essentially a kit lens. So I would expect it to be like, I don't know, $600 or something.
600, interesting. I was like, I felt like 400. Well, I bet if we looked up how much the 20 to 60 is, it would be something around that ballpark.
Okay, yeah.
I would hope. I don't know.
I think the 20 to 60 is like 500-ish.
There you go.
Right?
But I guess you are getting, it's probably doing a lot more work than a 20 to 60 because it has autofocus and it's a zoom lens and it's a pancake-ish lens.
Yeah.
So it's probably doing a lot more mechanical work, which is a lot more complicated to figure out than a 20 to 60. With that said, though, it's going to be like literally like half the size of this lens.
Yeah.
Maybe like a third of this lens. So, and
this camera has Phase-Tech autofocus still, right? It's got V-Log.
IBIS and electronic stabilization.
Okay, that's a lot of things that like there really isn't any other camera that's this small, except I mean you could argue I don't know if some of the Sonys do or not, if like the ZVE1 has, I mean even if the ZVE1 does have like image stabilization, it's nowhere near as good as Lumix cameras.
Is,
I mean that's pretty cool that like even though it does have those record limits, they didn't like cripple this camera unnecessarily by not giving you V-Log or not giving you phase detect for some reason or something like that.
And that's where I think the price point of this camera makes sense. Say it was $1,000, but it was missing image stabilization, missing V-Log, missing all these recording qualities. That camera just wouldn't sell as much.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that camera would be like, well, it's cool, but it's missing everything that we would want in it.
Yeah.
So it being able to get like maybe say 70% there with the record limits obviously missing out, no mechanical shutter, stuff like that, that makes it more challenging.
I think the mechanical shutter, I mean, you could argue that, you know, photographers might complain about like not having that, but at the end of the day, I feel like you can get a lot done with a mechanical shutter still. Yeah.
So not having a physical mechanical shutter, like the only real issue that you would run into is mixed lighting scenarios for photos. So it's that's the real issue. But like I was taking so many night photography shots with mixed lighting and I did not run into the issue with a bunch of lines. I'm assuming Lumix put into their system some form of, I don't know, somehow to fix it, some AI fix that basically is making it feel like there's an actual shutter in it. And they do this also with like the video. So have you gotten the new firmware update on the S5 IIX?
Yeah.
Have you tried the rolling shutter now with the electronic stabilization?
You know, to be honest, I don't use electronic image stabilization very much. I did, you know, test it out once I installed the new one, and it did seem a lot better. That jello effect seemed a lot less. So what the camera is doing is it's actually correcting the image with the electronic stabilization because the sensor is bigger in the camera. So what it's doing is physically correcting the shapes inside the camera with the whatever. I'm just going to call it AI because I don't know what else to call it. But with the camera itself, it's physically correcting the things. On the base model of this, I didn't notice any rolling shutter, and I was doing shots with trains passing by, and I didn't notice terrible rolling shutter on this camera. I would say straight out of the box from just this camera versus the S5 IIX, I would say this camera with no electronic stabilization looks a lot better with rolling shutter performance than the S5 IIX. Well, that's good to know. I mean, something else that me and Matthew were talking about is that like there are a lot of like internal like software stuff that like Lumix could fix with a firmware update if they ever wanted to. Like I don't necessarily see them doing this, but like if they ever did remove the record limits and just let our cameras overheat, they probably don't want to do that because it could fry our cameras. But like there are solutions from Tilta and Ulanzi where you can stick a fan on the back there, make it a little heat sink, and then you can keep your camera cool if you wanted to do longer record times. So that could be a potential fix in the future if Lumix ever decided to do that. So it's not like, I don't know, I don't feel like it's going to be a fix that we could never see happening. It could also be something in a newer version of this S9, maybe the next version of this, they would remove it or just give us a tiny fan. But there are things I think that could just be fixed with a firmware upgrade.
Now, one thing that can't be fixed, and it's something obviously they're not going to claim, this is not weather sealed.
Oof.
So for you who lives in Oregon, I've experienced Oregon for the last 2 days, and it rains.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, we're about to go out to the Columbia River Gorge, and we'll see how this camera will hold up.
Yeah, we were putting it to the test. But so that's what that said. It's like maybe light sprinkles, it's fine. But like getting your camera used to, and most out of the Lumix cameras are weather sealed. So I was a bit bummed. I was like, oh, this is not weather sealed. It's raining right now. I need to put this under a jacket.
Yeah.
So that is something to consider. It's like, okay, well, this isn't weather sealed. So if you're in situations or scenarios where you are in the rain and you need a camera that works in the rain, I would get the S5 II or 2X if you're looking in the full frame market.
With that being said, I'm not recommending this to anybody, but like I have used cameras that aren't weather sealed by Lumix. Like I'm pretty sure the GX85 isn't weather sealed. I've used that in the rain and it hasn't died on me. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but like if for some reason you get caught, I don't think that it's going to like
it would
fry
be fine.
it.
Yeah. But I've seen the test behind the scenes on what they do, and it's like they put the camera in like an ice box basically and just pit a snowstorm on the cameras.
Yeah.
And they still work. So that's the test Lumix do to make sure things are weather sealed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming this is semi-ish good enough for casual light rain.
Yeah.
But the way they test to verify someone's weather sealed is a snowstorm basically.
Yeah.
In a controlled box.
That's good to know. I mean, that's cool. I mean, I think like more so than the camera itself, I'm just excited that Lumix is starting to just invest more in like their L mount system and kind of like build up that system as like an ecosystem to be in.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like you're just trapped in the body style of the S5s. You know, you don't have to just have these, more cameras like these could be on the horizon, which I'm stoked on.
Have you seen all 4 colors yet?
I have.
Which color do you like the most?
I mean, I'm boring. I'm kind of a matte black everything type of dude, so I'd probably buy the all matte black one. But if I was going to choose another one, I would have chosen the green one for sure.
So I think majority of people in Japan got green.
Yeah.
So when I first got the camera, they were out of green. So like I got a black one, and then they were able to change it basically to green. But I think if you're interested in this camera, or you have the smile consideration and you want green, the green will be sold out probably the first, besides black.
And that kind of reminds me of like the GM1, which is a really old Lumix camera.
I'm glad this isn't bright green.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad none of the colors are childish.
Yeah. Honestly, like they're
muted.
Yeah. This is a conversation for a different podcast episode, but I just wish there would always be just a matte black version of everything, just for those people who are boring like me and we just want our camera gear to blend into the background and not be noticed.
Right. I know. I had to take the stickers off for my thumbnail, but they gave us like masking tape stickers, and it looked so clean. I'm like, I will never get this to look this clean if I want to mask over the logos.
Yeah.
But it looks clean. Yeah.
Well, it's cool, man. Dude, thanks for bringing that over. It's funny, like, I've been following the rumors on this camera for a really long time on all the rumor sites, and it's cool to actually see it here in person.
It is cool. What do you think about the rumor sites? What are your hot takes on that? I feel like, especially as someone who went to Japan and like got this camera and used it, I was like, it's a bummer because it's that you ruin the surprise for everyone the moment you start getting rumors and get accurate rumors.
Yeah.
But as a user or consumer, I'm like, yes, now I get to know before.
Honestly, I feel like they can be good to kind of, I don't know, curve your expectations a little bit.
Right.
I feel like if I was expecting this to be a mini S5 2X with a couple compromises, and then it was released and then it had all of these, I mean, it doesn't have a bunch of compromises, but it has things that would like make me not want to pick it up initially. I feel like I would have been more bummed, but since I already kind of knew what was going to be coming out, it was like, okay, this is like a photo content creator's camera. It's not a camera necessarily for me. I do think that it can kind of like ruin it for people, especially like there's obviously somebody who's leaking this stuff, which like, if you're under an NDA, you should not be leaking this stuff.
Right, yeah. Whoever did leak it, if you get caught, that's real serious.
Well, okay, did you notice anyone taking photos of you guys while you were in Japan? Because that was one of the leaked, somebody was taking photos of the creators that were flown out, and that's how I saw the first picture of this.
Yeah, so I and the group I was with, anytime we saw a photographer nearby, and especially with a zoom lens, we all put our cameras semi away.
Yeah.
Because they did warn us people will try to take photos knowing that there's creators in Lumix.
Yeah.
Especially because we're posting. Hey, they allowed us to post that we're in Osaka, Japan. So it's like,
sure, it's
calling for someone to come try to find us, which kind of sounds scary in a sense. But I only saw one photo. The thing that I'm shocked about is it was not photos that we've received as creators that also got leaked. That's, I think, was the more shocking part. It's like photos that like show like just the camera, like pictures of the camera. Yeah, that were the ones that got leaked,
like stock photos almost.
Yeah. Like if you went on Amazon or B&H, like those photos of the camera were the ones that were getting leaked initially, and then the photos came out with someone holding the camera, and then photos like that. Then those started coming out, but it was shocking to see that like some person who had these photos were leaking them. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, if you get caught, you're
not only going to lose your job, you're going to get sued.
Yes. Well, cool. Yeah, I don't know. It could also have been purposeful.
Yeah,
purposeful leaks are also a thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, builds the hype a little bit, I guess.
Right, and then like you said, it also curves expectation. Like, going into Japan, if I was expecting like an S1 and then I got this, I'd been like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, because I heard a lot of rumors that were totally false too. Like, I heard like that you guys were all going there for the new S1H Mark II or something like that, and I'm just like, oh, I'm going to get excited, but sometimes it's like, oh, okay, wait, let's calm down a little bit. It's not that camera yet.
And that was even like as a perspective, as a content creator going to Japan, not fully knowing like months before, but then slowly coming up, having some inculation of some ideas of what it might be. Yeah. I initially thought, all right, this is going to be the S1H Mark II. And then I was like, this is going to be sick. I'm video camera. But then when I started like thinking about this instead, not knowing what it exactly was going to be, I was like, all right. Like, it's not as cool. However, I think this is really powerful, and this is going to be a camera that sells a lot more than an S1H Mark II.
For sure.
Because people with $1,500 can afford a camera more so than people with, $4,000.
For sure.
It's going to selling 4 of these will be easier than selling a $4,000 S1H Mark II.
Okay, well, I just had a couple other questions that I know you can't answer, but I'm going to ask them anyways. Can we expect a more video-centered camera with a smaller sensor than the S5 2X anytime soon?
Probably.
I
don't know. Probably.
I'm just kind of hinting at, like, do you think? Let's just pretend that you don't know, even though I'm pretty sure you probably do. Like, do you think that the GH7 is in the horizon this year in 2024?
In 2024? So I think here's the reality of it: is they know the GH7 needs phase detect autofocus. Yeah. However, they also know that if they just released a GH7 with just the update of phase detect autofocus, how upset will you think the Micro Four Third community who bought the GH6 be if they're like, wow, this is just the GH6 again, but with phase detect?
Yeah. So they need to add something insane to make it that much better than the GH6.
Right. Because it's not like it's a small upgrade. Like they could obviously just do a GH6 Mark II and just add phase detect and call it a day. However, Lumix is known not to do that. They're known for their firmware updates. They're known for releasing cameras ahead of their time. So I think the reality is, unless Lumix has something that's like in the boat or in the bag, which they could, of something that's the next level, or like, all right, this is a different camera than the GH6 entirely, or like this is like what they were able to put in this camera internally. Maybe they were able to move stuff around with the electronic parts and add more stuff into it, or add more, higher quality frame rates or something like that to make it just feel different enough to be that next level of a camera. Then maybe, but depends how much they do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing where it's just like, I feel like I was having a conversation about this with someone else too, where it's just like, it can't just be phase detect, because that's not what Panasonic would do. If it's just phase detect, then it's just a GH6 Mark II. But if you do phase detect and like gave us something else, like
Right.
I can't imagine what it would be. The only thing I can think of is like maybe give us the sensor of like a GH5S or something like that, make it like a little bit better in low light, give us some higher resolutions, even though I don't care about higher resolutions.
Sure.
I'm sure other people would love 8K. I don't know, maybe a better, like the only thing I can really think of like as a creator that I would want is just phase detect autofocus, better low light performance
Right.
from a Micro Four Thirds camera.
Right. The same electronic stabilization, same autofocus settings like the G9 Mark
And
II
I mean,
has.
this is super petty, but like I love how the S5 2X looks. If they could give us a blacked out GH7, that would be sick.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that'd be great. What I also think could be cool, and this is me just speculating altogether, there's no insight information.
Yeah.
If say they came out with the GH6 and then say they came out with the GH6X and it cuts the viewfinder, it makes it more into an FX3
that would be
body.
sick.
The only issue I have with the FX3, minus the color, minus the IBIS, minus a bunch of other stuff, is the joystick on all the Lumix cameras are right here.
Yeah.
The joystick's on top of the camera.
On the FX3?
Yes.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize that.
I watched a video by Jesse Jiftwood and I was like, oh, this is kind of ugly.
Yeah.
But like, it's not functional having a joystick here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of functionality where I'm like, oh, never mind. I would not want that if that's my compromise. But say if they did do that, I would be down for that.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, like you said, they're going to have to put a lot more or new stuff. And Lumix knows that. Lumix knows that they can't just pit phase detect and call it a day, even though that's really all it needs.
Yeah.
Just because like their legacy market, like people that have already owned the GH6 would be like, come on, that would hurt as a consumer. But if you're like, oh, they just released a GH7 with phase detect with this feature, with this feature, with this feature. All right, this feels like a newer camera that's more upgraded. This what should have been the GH6 though, but
yeah,
it's great that it's getting there.
Like I still think that like the GH6 made like leaps and bounds above the GH5, like enough to where like, okay, this is an upgrade. But I mean, like Lumix has been doing that ever since like the GH1, the GH2. They've always like tried to like really up it, Yeah, I'm excited for what the GH7 might be, or the GH6 Mark II, or whatever it's going to be. Called? Like I'm here for it. I'm still pretty hopeful for the Micro Four Thirds system, I guess.
Right. Here's a question for you. You haven't shot on the G7, have you?
The G7?
You shot on the G85.
Yeah,
though.
The G85 is I feel like the closest I've gotten. Yeah.
Well, how would you feel if they made an updated G7 Mark II?
Dude, honestly,
it has phase detect, maybe IBIS, but like not like 60 frames a second. It has like comes back on the record settings.
Yeah.
But still has like a bunch of settings. Call $1,000.
Dude, I mean, like I would eat that up. Honestly, like if the G85 had 10-bit and phase detect autofocus, like I don't give a crap about even like 60 frames per second and 4K. Like, I don't even care. Like just 10-bit and phase detect would be a perfect beginner camera, just like the G7 was, It was like that introductory video shooter's camera, which I loved.
And that's what this camera, the S9, is that intro to full frame. It's that like ecosystem that they're slowly building, because eventually Lumix will come out with an S1H Mark II.
Yeah.
It's been 6 years. Something needs to come.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But it would be nice also for the Micro Four Thirds community. But that's what I'll say is like, it would be nice if they added some more intro level updated camera to the Micro Four Thirds camera, because right now the only people that will seriously, I think, buy a GH7 if that came out, or whatever high end Micro Four Thirds camera, is people that already have Micro Four Thirds cameras.
Yeah.
It's hard for someone to be like, all right, should I get a full frame S5 2X? That's $2,000, or say a GH7 that might be $2,000. I don't know, but pin some camera out there that's the same price point and competes. Obviously, it has way more specs, but it's a smaller sensor size. The full frame is the hype right now. It's a lot easier for someone to be like, consider buying a full frame camera because it's more future proofing in a sense. It has more room to grow versus a small sensor.
Yeah, and that's hard because I feel like I've convinced a lot of people to go with the Micro Four Thirds ecosystem. Like on my channel over the years, I've shot Micro Four Thirds for such a long time. There is something to be said about full frame cameras. It does make things like shooting on vintage lenses a lot easier. It's better in low light. But I do think, just as like someone who used to shoot action sports a lot, there's still a market for smaller sensored cameras. They have, faster readout speeds a lot of the times. They have better rolling shutter. So I feel like there still is. Like, I mean, I know a lot of like skate filmers that
Right.
still religiously shoot on a GH6, you know?
Yeah, and I'm bummed I didn't bring the G9 Mark II for you because the stabilization is really getting closer and closer to a gimbal.
Yeah.
And that's where the advantages of Micro Four Third cameras is really at right now, because the size is the exact same.
Yeah.
So it's not a size. Size is an advantage. Price is not an advantage. The size with lenses, I guess, is an advantage. But the real advantage is that stabilization is really getting closer and closer to a gimbal.
Yeah.
So it's going to become to a point where it's like, all right, you have a full frame camera that can record your talking head videos, your interviews, all that. And then you have a Micro Four Third camera that basically is a gimbal B-roll camera, higher speed frame route recordings and all that.
Yeah.
That's going to be the true advantage. Any other questions
Honestly, I mean,
that I can avoid and not answer?
Matthew's like under some NDA, so he can't say certain things. But
Sorry, guys.
You'll
I would
probably
if I could.
Yeah, you'll probably see some stuff coming out in the next few months that he can't talk about yet. But maybe when those actually come out, I'll have him back on and we can talk about them then.
Yes, of course. Cool, man. Well, I
Cool.
appreciate having me on.
Yeah, dude. Now we're gonna go out to the gorge and shoot with these cameras a little bit.
Yeah,
I guess.
man. Yeah,
Sweet.
you can rock this camera all day.
Sick. You can find Matt at his YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I'll
Matthew
put all this-
Danew.
I'll put all this stuff in the description.
The links.
All right, later.